Hello and welcome to the mixed division. Hello and welcome. Okay. Welcome to the mixed division. This is the third game of the day here at Elite Invite. We can see parts of the players standing in a spirit circle to begin and talk about certain expectations before the game. That is good practice as recommended by the World Flying Disc Federation. Just so you can already know in beforehand who your spirit captains are that you need to talk to, or what certain teams expect or not expect from each other. We will see here Deep Space from the UK, who are the current reigning champions, European club champions in the mixed division, facing up against Tartu Turbulance from Estonia, who were a good surprise addition to these top 8 European clubs. They have a lot of young players joining them new for this season who said from themselves that this might be their first international tournament at this level. So we'll see what they can bring as news perspective, but they also obviously have very impressive players from last season. Jakob Tam and Christian Loris were racking up stats in the mixed division at the EUCS last year, so we can expect great things again from them. Deep Space, on the other hand, is a more seasoned mixed team who have lots of national team players on their roster as well. Great. Haven't had the best showing at spring, at the spring tour, but they're also currently still missing some important players to join their matchups. So there might be new additions this weekend. We will see. So I'm very excited for this game to commence and guide you through it. My name's Mara Trapp. I'm sitting here in Berlin. In case you haven't watched the previous 2 rounds, I can highly recommend that you do. In the women's division that kicked us off in the morning, we had extremely tight games in the Pool A and not as close games in the Pool B, which is also the same setup we can see for the Open Division. Pool A seems very strong and very close, whereas Pool B has at least one game far from each other, and the other game also tightening up very close. So very strong showing so far, very interesting games. You can watch them all live or afterwards after you picked the one that you're watching currently. I believe that's Deep Space in white and Tartu in black. Tartu starting on offense. And a great leading pass into end zone, but can't be recovered in the end zone. So this is the first break opportunity for Deep Space. A great cut. Defense remaining calm, playing small ball to get the disc moving. We've melded back into a vert stack, starting out more of a horizontal setup first. Tartu recovering the disc. And then unfortunate miscommunication between the handlers, Jakob Tam and Lorapik, which gives Deep Space the opportunity to score, which they immediately did. So that was the assist from Tim Gilboy to Emily Potter, who I believe has joined Deep Space for the first time in 2024. But is obviously a great, powerful addition to Deep Space, being part of the GB mix team training for Worlds in Australia this year.
Down there. Yeah, good there, Alana. It's this side.
So Tartu coming back out on offense.
It's just a better pull. It's just a better pull. Play deep, play deep.
So Deep States has to reset their defense, but Tartu gets another opportunity to score this point. Great game by Tartu, keeping the disc moving. And then unfortunate cut into the space in front of the open space in front of the thrower in the end zone is usually a very, very small window to get the throw in perfectly. But they've managed to hold on to it. So it looked like a drop from this perspective, but in that case, impressive cut and disc awareness by Marin Daraba to keep that disc up, and great spacing by Jakob Tam to get that disc into that small available space. This is the first time that we will see the Deep Space O-line take the field, and you can see what they can manage to put onto the field. The last game these two teams played against each other was in a pool play. It ended 15-13 in favor of Deep Space, but that at least promises to be a tight and interesting game, and let's see what Tartu can put up this time. Great defensive pressure by Tartu gives them a break opportunity immediately. Tom Fisher asking for a new disc. Jakob Lember bringing that disc back into play, almost on the doorstep. And there you can see that the defensive pressure from the Deep Space O-line is equally strong of getting a run-through defense to get the disc back and get it moving. I believe that's great toe-in by the receiver, Daniel Wilson. Great trust by Sarah Halkert to put that disc high, and trusting in the athleticism and ability of her receiver to get that disc where it needs to go. That is a score for Deep Space. But Tartu showing great defensive pressure early on in this game, putting pressure on the handlers even before they can make the first proper pass, is a really promising start for the season for this rather small group of players. Let's see if they can keep it up. But first, this is an offensive point that just sailed out of bounds, so we'll start from the brick mark. Classical setup again in a horizontal stack. That is somewhat isolating one player in the middle with having two people being even closer to the sideline. Great read and catch by Clara Lest to keep the disc moving. Marinaba, another pass into the end zone from Marinaba to Clara Leit. So great work from these two to get the disc into the end zone, passing it between those two at the beginning. This is meaning the game is currently 2-2, a clear hold for Tartu. You can see the Deep Space O-line again, and showing, if you can see it shortly, with hand signals as what gender they are matching up, which makes it a lot easier for the defense to match up. There might be some miscommunication who's marking who, because it seems like a match defense with the Tartu player caught up to the person they were supposed to defend. Great grab and throw. See if they can rein it back in. This seems to be a call. Probably arguing that they've moved into a space and an accepted foul call. The rest of the people are moving back to where they were when the foul occurred. That is what they're supposed to do. The disc is back in the hands of Deep Space on the line of the end zone. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to see. And a great score for Deep Space. Alvaro Iturmendi, an addition to this team as well. To Amy Van Zyl. Van Zyl? Amy Van Zyl? For the score. That keeps the scoreboard more or less even between female matching and male matching players, which is what we love to see in the mixed division. Tartu again setting up in their version of a horizontal stack, creating space by cutting deep and having one person come under. You can hear very clearly the Deep Space sideline. But Tartu keeping calm and under pressure, keeping the disc, even though it's a very small space on that open far sideline for us. And again, scoring in the same pocket as before. Christian Lauritz to Crystal Linz. Tartu not being scared of being forced on that sideline. They're just using that small space if they can. Used to that maybe from playing more indoors during the winter and coming from an indoor season to this. Holding their own against the reigning champions. It's currently 3-3. You can again see the Deep Space showing which gender they're matching up with, which I believe means that this is 4 female matching players point. Which also said that a female matching player needs to pull. Deep Space keeping the disc moving quickly as possible. A great throw to the break side. First, unfortunately, couldn't connect in the end zone. This is a break chance for Tartu. A great grab and read by that Tartu player, completely unexpected, coming into the back, but still manages to have that awareness to get that disc. Impressive. Tartu moving slightly backwards, happy to, because they get the undercut that they were looking for right after, getting the disc back into the hands of Halantara. And a great read again by Halantara. The Huck came from Jakub Lember into space, trusting his receiver to read that disc perfectly, which she did. This is their first break, getting him back on serve, and a timeout is called, presumably by Deep Space. For context, Tartu say that from themselves, that about 99% are at Elite Invite for the first time. And for quite a few of them, this is also their first high-level outdoor tournament. So it's impressive how calm and collected they play. And this seems very, very promising from the Estonian side. Not to say that Deep Space is not having a good game, because they obviously know how to play together and to connect. If they manage to reduce the miscommunications that they had previously, we know that they can play at a very high level, and with everyone on the pitch having so many different superstars joining. Unfortunately, I can't see their numbers quite as clearly, so it's difficult for me to say if their full roster is actually playing. I know that Layla Denniston didn't play last weekend with the GB women's team at Tom Stanley and was often seen at sideline. That could also be the case here for the Deep Space O-line, which would also mean for the future that they add another incredible player back onto their playing roster. Deep Space receiving the pull, setting up in a 2-5 wet stack. Great cut from the front of the stack. That's Daniel Wilson, who also has this high release back to Amy Fonsale. So we have great connections between those two. And a huge gainer on the break side, opening up the pitch and a lot of space for Deep Space. And a great cut, but we have some discussion on the pitch. I'm unclear whether it seems to be a discussion between the thrower and the marker, so this might be a stall out call or foul call. But now we have discussion among the cutters as well. Okay, the people on the pitch also repeat stall out and pick calls. So it's an accepted stall out call. The disc should go back in where the thrower were. It is tapped in at a different place and after people moving. But they're now carrying it to the correct spot. That's good communication, and I think we have a violation call as well, because this is what they were supposed to be doing. It's always difficult after discussion to see where exactly the disc has to go back in. So this minor mistake is absolutely reasonable. Tartu using this opportunity to play, picking the disc back up where it's supposed to go. Great grab and secure hands in Laura Lipik. Alantara back with the disc. One of the main players of this team. A great read by the defense, getting to that disc first, getting high. So the intended receiver, Hunter, has to apologize to the thrower, saying, I'm sorry, I didn't get to that disc early. That was a great defensive bid by Deep Space. Great grab and a lovely leading forehand into the end zone by Alvaro Itomendi to Daniel Wilson. So we're keeping it even 4-4. So we're seeing Deep Space D-line again. And a potentially great pull. Great run down by Deep Space defenders. But now some miscommunication to its where this was going. And a great backhand hug into the middle of the pitch, into the second third, and into the end zone. Incredible play by Tartu. Christian Laritz again to Jakob Tam. They're again back to racking up those scores on the scoreboards, just as we expected them to from the EUCS last year. A great initiation cut and followed up by a great break throw back into the original handler set. Again, unfortunately, it's very difficult to see the white numbers. Lovely put into the open space in the end zone. And with open space, I mean space on the break side, open in front of the cutter, completely free to make that catch. Again, Alvaro Iturmendi is throwing that disc to Elliot Cook. That puts Iturmendi at the top of the scoreboard for Deep Space. unfortunate drop after a great undercut from Jakub Tam, based on what I can see. So the disc is back with deep space on the doorstep for another break. Great isolation in front of, and a lovely cut to the open side. From Chao Chen So. And the throw was by Kate Gibson. Deep space showing that they can remain calm and just focus on offense once they get the opportunity and a turn, even if they not necessarily produced this one. They are ready to execute their offensive game once they get the disc. That is something that Tartu needs to contend with, and therefore focus on minimizing whatever they can contribute to creating those turns when they're on offense. But again, the cuts and spacing was incredible. We have another defensive outlook from deep space, and another miscommunication or a throw that's slightly overthrown, making it difficult to catch. Deep space back again with the disc, only short after the pull. And a timeout called. On the field. I believe that's the second timeout deep space called this game. And while this is a short break, I will also take a short break. Also, in the mixed division, games are currently almost always tied up, or at least very close. In the second game of this pool, we have Sequidistos against Disconnection currently at 6 apiece. In the pool B, there's 08 Ultimate from Germany against Reading Ultimate from the UK at 4 apiece, and we have Leamington Lemmings also from the UK 6-3 up against Manchots from France. So if you have the opportunity, watch all these games. And the disc is back in play. This seems to be a good timeout point because it gives deep space exactly the calm that they needed to continue playing this small game into the end zone. And that's the assist from Emily Potter to John Saville for the goal. It's the second break in a row. Deep space just needs one more to get to half. We have another timeout call here. presumably called by Tartu Turbulance. As Deep Space has no timeouts left for this half, they will get 2 timeouts again in the second half. Based on the flags in the back, the wind might be coming from left to right now. But let's see how this potential 0.4 half is going to go. Also be interesting to see if Deep Space is putting up still a D-line or if some of the O-line players have moved over to give the D-line players somewhat of a rest. But there seems to be a very same line or similar lines that we've seen before. Tartu again setting up 2 female matching players on the same side in their host deck closer to the sideline, isolating one person more so in the middle than in a familiar regular horizontal stack setup. And again, a great cut by Tartu. Number 2, Marindaba has the disc again. And one great idea, unfortunately the execution is a little bit too short, making it possible for the defensive player to pick it up instead. So we have Deep Space again ready to potentially score the 0.4 half. A great cut by Ian Tate. Unfortunately can't connect and catch the disc safely, so this is back with Tartu and back with Marindaba on the far side of the field. There's a pick call on the pitch. Not that surprising with the cluster of people in the middle. But they're just catching up and resetting the stall. And the disc is going back to Marindaba. He's happy to catch now. Every unfortunate was ready to catch the next pass as well, or was the intended target for the next pass. This is another break opportunity. I think the third turn of this point. Tartu set up some sort of switching clamp setup. Unfortunately for them, Deep Space saw the space that was given to them, used it to play down the open sideline into the end, and that's another goal for Deep Space. We're now at half. It's another assist from Kate Gibson to Stefan Millard, and we'll see you again after halftime. Halftime is also not that long. as we come back to the second half of this game, it'd be interesting to see if Tartu is able to connect more closely with each other, as some of these unfortunate turnovers are something that might be the pressure of the game, but something that they can fix more easily, as they don't necessarily need to adjust a lot of their spacing. They just need to give them each other a bit more time to catch the disc. So sometimes it might be helpful to get the disc a little bit of a softer spacing so it's easier to catch. Whereas Deep Space, after already getting a break in the first turn in first point, has finished out the first half with a run of 4 points in a row, 1 hold, and then 3 breaks in a row. So they are looking on fire and very calm in their defensive offense. As is the case, because Tartu started on offense, they now have to start the second half on defense. This gives essentially an easier way for Deep Space to score another point, as it's easier to score on offense. We haven't seen many zone matchups in this game so far. That might be because the wind is not as strong, or because they chose to stick to a closer pass-in matchup. As I say that, Tartu has set up some sort of zone and creates a turnover. There's an injury call on the pitch. Deep Space is switching out one person. I'll hope they are okay. Tartu choosing to not switch out a player. Given the shortness of a roster, that might also be a good choice. Good coverage, but still by Deep Space. But with an arching forehand, into the end zone. A great throw by Willem Tönnissen, and now we'll see if the discussion whether that was impacted, the catch was impacted by a foul. That is the discussion in the end zone. There seems to be an agreement that there is a foul, but not a strip call. So this is not an immediate goal, but rather the intended receiver will catch the disc, check it back in, and we're at the place of the foul, and then move it to the front. But at that point, everyone else can already move as well. We can as there was some crowding in front of on the open side in front of the disc, the thrower chooses instead to give a huge backhand into the break side and manages to score. Scores from Laura Lepik to Wilhelm Tönnissen, who had the attempted assist earlier that resulted to the foul call. I'm trying to determine whether my previous incursion that Layla Dennison isn't playing might be incorrect. Unfortunately, I cannot see numbers clearly enough to say that for sure. I thought it might look like her setting the mark on that scoreline, the goal line earlier. either way, I'm always excited to see her play. I'm wishing for that essentially every point or every game. And if not, all the best. Deep Space also choosing a horizontal setup against the zone look from Tartu. The zone is not necessarily threatening every single throw in the reset space and allows for easier swings. And now it's switched to a forcing sideline. Tom Fisher with the disc now. And that's another score for Deep Space through Cardron to Alvora Itomendi. Good to see Cardron back on the pitch. She moved off earlier with the injury, so I'm happy to see that it's nothing major and that she can join the game again. As much as you can say that every point counts in the new ranking system, and unless you're unfamiliar with how that works this season, unlike previous seasons with the European Ultimate Federation has chosen this year to introduce a ranking where wildcards are awarded, and other than that, you need to achieve a ranking in the top 10 or up to 16, depending on which division you're playing in and how many wildcards are awarded to be allowed to play EUCF in the end of the season again in Belgium. These teams are currently playing for a wildcard here at Elite Invite, but also every game counts in terms of the ranking. We now have a pick call, so the disc goes back. Tartu has already moved up to the midfield line. Good communication between those players, and the disc is back in the competent hands of Marin Baraba. Great read and catch by Clara Liet. And the disc is back in the hands of Jakob Tam. And Marin Baraba at this close sideline. Lovely break throw for the score. And Tartu is back on the board, slowly closing the gap at 7-9. We have another 35 minutes of playing time, but as you probably know, the hard cap is as 15. That could end the game earlier than the playing time, and even if the playing time has run out, the team that wants to win still needs to score a last point. So this could potentially go on for a long while now, but there is still some time either in the scoring in the hard cap as well as in the time cap. Again, good mixed etiquette to show what gender you're matching up with, making it easier to set up your defense. That was an interesting horizontal stack up with the two people in the middle cutting deep and then both people from the sides coming in. And a miscommunication or slight overthrow leads to this turn, giving Tartu a break chance later in the game. Good upline cut. Great mark to defend that around swing. And Tartu's still trapped on the far sideline, but moving slowly ever closer to the scoreline. And they managed to punch it in exactly in that very, very tight space in that corner. That is apparently one of their favorite spaces to score. From Modern Lava to Cloud Elite, we had that connection already in this game. Take it back. That was an offensive hold for Tartu, but nevertheless. No, that was a break. Those are the scores that we had previously. Kasper Sapelkov to Enis Anet Ningol, still working with a very tight space. That is something that they might be more familiar with from playing indoors, but also they seem very confident doing it in this open, in this outdoor space. Tartu getting one break back means the game is closing. Tom Fisher and Ruth Gordon working in the handler space. And a run through defensive block from Tartu. This zone defense seems to be working quite well for them. Great grab, casual one-handed grab to then throw it into the end zone, and a lovely forehand hook for the score. That's another break. Jakub Lambert to Jakob Tam. So we're not yet back on serve, but we're back on 9 apiece, having closed the gap that Deep Space opened up in the first half. This looks like a timeout has been called, presumably by Deep Space, trying to stop the forward momentum that Tartu has developed in the last couple of points. The zone has been working quite well for Tartu, making people seem open, but contesting those long throws and far throws across the field, and receiving a run-through block in this last game, and this last point, which you can underestimate if you're not necessarily that used to this setup, or if you're not used to it playing in this constellation as well as you might hope. So a good choice on Tartu's side to switch up the defensive setup and make Deep Space adjust to it in the next couple of points. And another pole. Taking some time to pick it up. But don't feel it looks like a zone setup. Again. Let's see what Deep Space can do against it. And they now seem very happy in getting those small spaces. Yes. Okay. Layla Dennison is back on the board and getting several discs up. Deep Space scores in the same small pocket at the front of the end zone. That was a convenient and good call for the timeout to reset and focus your energy on playing the small ball game and the game with everyone on the pitch that you're good at and known for. The score is Elliot Cook to Alvaro Itomendi, who is the unquestioned scoreboard leader for Deep Space at this point. But I hope you guys are watching are as excited about the closeness of this game as I am. I think this is a really, really good game to watch here. I'm currently unsure what the discussion is. That might be, as is typical for mixed, sometimes a gender discussion. You can see the signal for women's, as there's an alternating scale. So first point is played with one gender matchup, and then the next two are played with the other, and then the next two are played with the first rotation again. You can hear the Deep Space trying to cover that first pass, and they managed to quite well, putting pressure on from the start. But Tartu playing happily with the small open passes that they can get, and then immediately hacking it into the same corner, showing that they not only can play small game, they can also hack it deep. That's another score for assist from Jakob Tam to Helen Tera. Those are also both up in the scoreboards for Tartu, proving that they are they're not only dangerous on the underpasses, but you also need to cover them deep if you want to prevent those hucks from getting to an open target. And again, we see the Deep Space O-line. Tom Fisher with the disc. And a great cut in front. Through his quadrant again to get the disc into the middle of the page. Currently touching almost every second disc. And a foul call that might explain how the disc, the rather strange curve of the disc, but it's retracted good spirit from deep space. It's always fair to call something, but it's always good to listen to what your opponent has to say, whether something actually impacted the play. And an impressive hook into the end zone. Let's see if she can run it down. Yes, she can. It's called in. And that's another break for Tartu. And another exact score system as before. Jakob Tam to Helen Tara. Impressive throw, an impressive rundown to get to that disc. It's really important to switch up from the defensive mindset to an offensive mindset and vice versa. And Tartu's showing that they are capable of doing both. Another 20 minutes of regular game time, depending on how fast this score is progressing. And we have another zone setup. No, it's just a poachy defense on the handlers in the beginning, standing in the lanes. Great high grab from deep space to get to that disc and keep it alive. Lovely J-cut to get into that space. And unfortunate that this connection couldn't work into the end. But great spacing from that cut to get into the position of throwing that assist and reading where your defensive player is not going to be able to follow you. Another chance for Tartu. And a pick call upfield. I believe before this throw, but it might not have affected, so the disc might stay. And that is what's happening. An attempt to get to that disc fast. Oh. And another run through disc for deep space. Same person picking up the disc here in the corner. Elliot Cook with a run through and getting the game started again. And another pass towards the same corner into the back end of the end zone. A lovely leading pass. Get to your teammates. So another great score from Elliot Cook, who got the defense and got the disc back here in front of the camera to Daniel Wilson. That was incredible play and awareness on defense, and then a great put for the assist. Ian Cook is originally from Brisbane and has now is currently in London and playing with Deep Space, as you can see, but has played with the Australian Opens and in the past There seems to be another confusion on the game. Should explain why there is no pole. But from my own experience, that can always be difficult to make that gender matchup clear. So I presume that was, again, the thing that they wanted to make sure before the point starts, which is always the right point to start it. There's a down call and good spirit from Tartu immediately accepting that call. Deep space on the doorstep for another break. Keeping that disc alive with all necessary energy, and then a small dish pass into the end zone for the break. That's a break from Tim Gilboy to Kate Gibson. This is an extremely close game, especially also when it comes to the breaks. As Ipswich is currently leading 5 breaks to 4, which leads to a lead of 12 to 11. Tartu managing quite well to create space with their horizontal stack setup for the pole plays. And then an easy pass with the backhand for the score. That was a lovely clean hold. Crystal Linz to Marin Drabe again. This looks like it's another timeout call. I can't tell you by whom. But I will take a short break as well. And I'm back. The same game in this pool has already ended. So I would say you've chosen the correct game to watch if you're watching this one, because it's the closest game currently on. Which, in my opinion, is also the most interesting. Another pole, and you can see a 3-4 setup that deep space is used quite a lot so far in this game. And a zoney, or at least poachy look from Tartu, which has served them quite well in the second half. Dennison on the disc, a lefty, which creates different opportunities than for right-handed throws. A lovely put, and now with Quadrant again, and a great put, and a good awareness of that cutter to look back for the disc. Never run to the perfect open space and not look up. Maybe your handlers want to hit you exactly there. And this has worked out great for deep space in this case. It's another great connection between Ruth Quadrant and Alyu Cook. That is also what he has told us to look out for. And now you can see why. Kadro. Tartu carrying the disc to the break mark. That should be indicated somewhere on the pitch, 18 meters in front of the goal line. This looks like an yes, and a great run through defense from deep space. It looks like they set up a forced middle person match, and it worked quite well for them. After that impressive run through, deep space remains calm like they did in the first half, and after 10, play as long as they need to get to an open pass into the end zone. This time it's from Stephen Miller to Alana Archer. Great job, great defensive pressure, bringing them close to match point. This is now 14-12 for deep space. They just need one more point to win this game. Although I myself don't necessarily understand exactly how the algorithm works, if I'm understood it correctly, though, close games mean a lot, even though the points you will get for any universe point or game where you win with 1 point is worth 125 points. Overall, it means more to score points in close games than not. So this is, no matter how this game ends, a good and lovely game to watch and interesting game to watch, but also a good game for both of those considering that they are counting for the rating to be good. Even though there's good pressure from Deep Space, Tartu is playing it safe and calm. It's the second Deep Space body on the ground, but Tartu manages to walk it into the end zone, trusting each other to get the disc where it needs to go. And that is exactly how you can score if you know that your cutters will get free eventually. You don't need to take the first opportunity. You can just take what is actually open. But great defensive effort by Deep Space, putting their bodies on the line to get this point early. But they will now have another chance. It looks like we have another timeout called here, which makes a lot of sense as the points are getting so close to the hard cap. You can now use it to rest a little bit to make another effort and run for it. That is again the great connection that we've seen earlier, just turned around this time. Helen Tara to Jakob Tam for the score, bringing it to 13-14 and ever so closer to a universe. Deep Space now has the advantage to again put on an O-line. A great pull from Tartu and a great run towards cutting, stopping that first pass upfield. With Deep Space again remaining calm. I believe Dennison is back with the disc. Playing on the same far sideline, open far sideline, and now using the rest of the pitch. Unfortunately, the connection isn't quite there, just slightly too far for Elliot Cook to reach it. So Tartu with another break chance and potentially getting us to Universe. That is very unlucky and giving Deep Space again the chance to score on this point. It looked quite beautiful for Tartu's offense before that. Good commitment by the defense, and then a score in the open cone, front cone. Brings us to 15-13 for Deep Space. Elliot Cook again, assist for Daniel Wilson. This was the exact score they had at EUCF last year as well. But a good showing from both sides. Very interesting seeing Tartu with a smaller roster develop over the season, getting those connections to tighten up, because they just have that many players to play with that might make it easier to connect in the following games. But also great efforts to get those breaks back that Deep Space started off in the first half. Deep Space finding each other during the game made it safe at the end to continue remaining extremely calm after a turn on and getting the defense and playing calm offense. You can now see them first having two separate spirit circles, as is also suggested by the World Flying Disc Federation, and then will join to have a big spirit circle and talk amongst each other. That is it for me. I'm Mary Trapp. I was coming to you from Berlin. The next round will be Women's Ultimate again, which showed a couple of very close and interesting games in the first round today. So definitely stay around to check those out.